But when my mother's best friend, flushed with a crimson blush, pushed open my bedroom door, in the very next second, I kicked her straight into the room of my arch rival. Only because in my previous life, I fell head over heels for my mother's gorgeous bestie. After she had one too many drinks, she dragged me into her own bedroom. The following day, when we were caught red-handed, she was forced into a shotgun wedding with me. On our wedding day, her childhood sweetheart was so devastated that he was tragically struck down by a reckless, out-of-control car. He died instantly on the spot. Right before he drew his final breath, he sent one last text to Mikai, Mikai, let's be together in our next life. From that moment on, I felt as though Mikai had transformed into a complete stranger. She handled Fang Yuan's funeral with chilling composure, married me with a heart of stone, and coldly stated she didn't want children yet. When I was involved in a horrific car accident and lay gasping for air on the operating table, I overheard the doctor calling her, only for her to calmly reply, notify me once he's dead. At that moment, the brutal truth hit me. Mikai loathed me. She hated me for marrying her, and she blamed me for the twist of fate that killed Fang Yuan. The second my life slipped away on that surgical bed, memories surged through my entire being. When I finally snapped my eyes open again, I had actually regressed back to the night of that cocktail party. Right now, Mikai's consciousness is already beginning to blur. Without a single shred of hesitation, I whipped the phone out of my bag and dialed Fang Yuan's number immediately. 10 minutes later, Fang Yuan arrived in a frantic rush. I lunged forward and grabbed his hand. I know you and Mikai are madly in love. You just haven't found the right moment to break the ice and confess it all. She's wasted now, and she needs you to look after her. This is the ultimate chance to finally reveal your feelings. Fang Yuan was already skeptical when he got the call, but hearing me speak with such absolute certainty, his expression shifted into something far more complex, paralyzed by the fear that this was all an elaborate trap. Yunmo, aren't you absolutely obsessed with Mikai? Instead of taking advantage of her being vulnerable, you actually called me here to play matchmaker? What kind of game are you playing? The moment I heard those words, a self-deprecating smirk crept onto my face. It was ironic, really. My relentless pursuit of Mikai was already legendary across the city. Back then, I naively believed that with enough hustle, I could bridge the gap of status and age between us. Now I finally realized that if she doesn't love me, it doesn't matter how much of myself I sacrifice. It's all just a fast track to a lifetime of agony. I already screwed up once in my past life. Is a crush really worth more than my own damn life? I shook my head slowly. I'm over it. I'll never catch feelings for her again. As soon as the words left my lips, Mikai's muffled voice drifted from inside the room. Fang Yuan peered toward the bedroom door, a flicker of hesitation flashing in the depths of his eyes. Ultimately, Fang Yuan seemed to be swayed by my resolve. He gritted his teeth and snapped. Then why are you still lingering? Looking for a front row seat to the show. My body stiffened momentarily. Then I stepped aside to let the man enter. The instant Fang Yuan's hand reached out to stroke Mikai's face, I slammed the door shut without a hint of hesitation. It felt as if every ounce of strength had drained from my soul, and I slid down against the wall until I hit the floor. Tears of total collapse spilled uncontrollably from my eyes. Yet beneath the pain, I felt a bizarre sense of liberation. Finally, I can break free from the tragic fate of my previous life. I frantically wiped the salt from my face, stumbling as I scrambled toward the safety of my own room. I didn't catch a wink of sleep that entire night. At dawn, my phone suddenly vibrated. Yumo, would you like to come abroad and live with mom? Years ago, when the Yun Group planned to expand into foreign markets, my mother relocated overseas all by herself. Terrified that she wouldn't have time to properly raise me, she decided to entrust me to the care of her much younger close friend, Mikai. That care lasted for several long years, and during that time I fell hopelessly in love with her. Even after, the Yun Group's business had stabilized overseas, and my mother tried countless times to bring me back. I had stubbornly refused her every single time. But now, Mikai and Fang Yuan have finally confessed and coupled up, so it's high time I vanish and live my own life. Thinking of this, I took a deep breath. Mom, I'm coming, I'll do it. My mother clearly didn't expect such a sudden change of heart. On the other end of the line, her tone became incredibly ecstatic. Son, you've finally come to your senses. I've been telling you for years. Mikai was never the right one for you. Obsession without reciprocity only leads to a dead end. There's nothing wrong with wanting love, but you have to find the right person. I've actually scouted a fiancé for you who shares your same surname. Once you get here overseas, spend some time getting to know her. Testing the waters with someone new is always the right move. My mother's words caused my already swollen eyes to overflow with tears again. In my past life, she begged me just like this, but I was a stubborn fool who refused to listen, wasting my entire existence on a dream. I pinched my palm hard, forcing a faint smile. Mom, I'll follow your lead. I'll start the immigration paperwork right away. After hanging up, I quickly wiped my face, grabbing my documents to head out. But the moment I swung the door open, I collided head-on with the woman standing right there in the hallway. The hickeys covering Mikai's neck flashed vividly before my eyes. Even though I thought I was prepared, I still instinctively averted my gaze. That flinch didn't escape Mikai's sharp eyes. Coupled with my tear-rimmed, bloodshot look, she immediately jumped to a conclusion. Her voice was frigid, laced with a sharp warning. Yunmo, whether you like it or not, Fang Yuan and I are together now. I'm going to marry him. Since you're staying under my roof, you will show him the respect he deserves. Don't you dare utter those ridiculous love confessions ever again. I kept my eyes down and replied calmly, I understand. The sheer coldness of my response felt alien to Mikai. She looked down, scrutinizing the boy standing before her. Back when I first moved into the Mi residence, I used to call her Sister Mi with a sweet, innocent smile. But later, as my feelings grew into something darker, I stubbornly refused to call her that ever again. She furrowed her brow, ready to snap back at me, but a male voice suddenly echoed from behind, shattering the suffocating tension. Mikai, I've brought all my luggage over. Which room should I take? Mikai quickly snapped out of it and melted into Fang Yuan's arms. Purring softly, you love the warm sunlight, and Yunmo's room faces south, where the light is the most radiant. I'll have him vacate it and move to the guest room. From now on, that space belongs to you. Triumph flickered in Fang Yuan's eyes, yet he feigned hesitation. Oh, that feels so inappropriate. Compared to Yunmo, I'm just a latecomer to this house. Maybe I should just take the guest room instead. He made a show of heading downstairs, only to let out a small scripted gasp of surprise in the next breath. Mikai pulled him back firmly into her embrace. You are my future husband, the true master of this household. How could I possibly let you stay in a guest room? But Yunmo has occupied that room for so long. Forcing him to relocate so suddenly Won't he find it difficult to adjust? Upon hearing that, Mikai shot a dismissive glance toward me at the door. What is there to adjust to? He needs to get used to the fact that I'm getting married, get used to this house having a real master, and accept the reality that he is nothing more than an outsider. My eyelashes trembled as I forced a self-deprecating smile. An outsider, huh? Yeah. She wasn't lying. I truly was just an interloper here. I curled my lips into a thin line. I'll pack my belongings and move to the guest room immediately. It didn't matter. I'd be vanishing from here very soon, returning to the safety of my mother's arms, and never looking back. I would never again set foot in this place. This was now solely Mikai and Fang Yuan's home. Over the next few days, I frequented the embassy to finalize my paperwork, leaving at dawn and returning late at night, just to dodge any encounters with Mikai. But no matter how hard I tried to evade them, I still witnessed the sickeningly sweet affection she showered on Fang Yuan. When Fang Yuan complained about a poor appetite, she spent a fortune hiring a world-class chef to cook for him at home. Whenever Fang Yuan felt the slightest bit unwell, she'd ditch major contract signings just to nurse him at home. The moment Fang Yuan casually mentioned a piece of jewelry, it would appear before him in less than 10 minutes. I witnessed it all in silence, without making a scene or uttering a word. While waiting for my immigration papers to be processed, I began the process of purging my belongings. After packing my essentials into a suitcase, I gathered all the old love letters and sketches of lotuses I'd drawn for Mikai into a single box, carrying it out with the intent to dump it all in the trash. Just as I reached the entrance, I ran smack into Mikai, who was returning. From buying dessert for Fang Yuan, I acted as if she were invisible, keeping my eyes fixed forward as I tried to brush past her. The next second, a sharp jolt shot through my wrist. Mikai gripped me tight. "You've been dodging me lately, haven't you?" I furrowed my brows in annoyance. "I haven't." Mikai stepped closer, scrutinizing my evasive expression with an intense, lingering gaze. "Don't lie. You're out at dawn and back after dark every day, and you vanish without even greeting me. If that's not avoiding me, then what is? Is it because Fang Yuan and I are together now?" I shook my head frantically. "No, that's not it. Auntie, me seeing you with the one you love actually makes me happy as your junior. I sincerely wish you both a happily ever after. You can relax now. I finally accepted the reality that you'll never love me, so I've decided to stop loving you back." I stated the facts with total composure, but Mikai's face darkened instantly. The words sounded inexplicably grating to her. "You don't love me." That was probably the most absurd thing she'd ever heard. I'd confessed only to be rejected, and pestered her daily despite her coldness. "So, is this your new tactic to grab my attention?" Mikai spoke while scanning my face for a reaction. Seeing me freeze in visible shock, she became even more certain of her theory. She pressed forward, closing the distance, and her gaze fell upon the box in my arms. Her tone turned absolutely glacial. "You don't love me yet? You wrote all these love letters. You secretly sketched all these portraits of me after stalking me for years. You suddenly expect me to believe your feelings just vanished." I stared back at you in agonizing silence. How could I not realize how ridiculous I sounded? After all, nobody believes the boy who cried wolf too many times. But these absurd words were now my absolute reality. "Auntie, I truly did love you for a long time, but you will never ever love me back. So I'm done. I've officially given up." With those final words right before Mikai's eyes, I dumped the entire contents of the box onto the floor. I began shredding the love letters and sketches piece by piece. Amidst the flurry of white scraps falling like snow, I noticed her expression didn't soften with relief. Instead, it twisted into something much more sinister. Just as I began to wonder if I had misread her, Mikai's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Keep acting. Keep playing your games, but mark my words. No matter what pathetic stunts you pull, the only person I will ever love is Fang Yuan." After that explosive encounter, Mikai and I didn't exchange a single word. I had nothing left to say to her. She was convinced this was all just a toxic push and pull tactic, and refused to give me the satisfaction of a reaction. This Cold War dragged on until the Mi family's grand banquet. In the past, at gatherings like this, I was the golden boy, the center of her parents' universe. The Mi clan would swarm me with endless warmth and concern, and only Mikai's intervention could rescue me from the crowd. But now, the Mi family's spotlight had shifted entirely to Fang Yuan. After all, he was the soon-to-be master of the Mi household. I was merely an outsider, and they knew exactly where the true power now resided. In a single morning, I witnessed exactly how much the Mi family valued Fang Yuan. The legendary Mi family heirloom jade pendant was personally fastened to his waist by Mother Mi the very moment he stepped through the front door. As for that sacred piece of jade, I hadn't even caught a glimpse of it in my entire previous life. When the feast commenced, the family immediately began an open discussion regarding the upcoming wedding date. The banquet concluded with the wedding officially set in stone. Just as I prepared to head back with Mikai, Mother Mi abruptly called out to me, stating she had a private matter to discuss. The second we entered the study, she cut straight to the chase. "Yunmo, it's time you get out of Mikai's life for good. You're well aware that Mikai and Fang Yuan are officially together now. If you insist on lingering here, aside from causing her endless trouble and making an utter fool of yourself, exactly what do you hope to achieve?" Mother Mi made zero effort to mask her blatant distaste for me. An inexplicable wave of bitterness surged through my chest. Once upon a time, Mother Mi actually adored me. But that affection withered away the very day I confessed my feelings to Mikai. Now everyone labels me as delusional, and they all condemn me as a shameless disgrace. I dug my nails deep into my palms. "Don't worry, I'm leaving." Having said that, I pulled the immigration documents from my bag and presented them directly to Mother Mi. I called my mother a few days ago and told her I'm moving abroad to live with her. She's already arranged a fiancé for me. I'll stay far away from Auntie Mi from now on. I'll never pester her again. Mother Mi took the immigration papers and scrutinized them repeatedly before her rigid expression finally softened. "You'd better mean what you say." I waited until Mother Mi had finally vanished to let my guard down and exhale. I tucked the documents back into my bag, ready to depart. But the moment I stood up, my eyes locked with Mikai's as she stood in the doorway. "Who exactly are you staying far away from?" My mind went completely blank in an instant. I had no idea how much of that conversation she'd intercepted, but my survival instinct screamed at me not to let her find out about me leaving the country. So I just shook my head. "No one. You must have misheard." I refused to give her another glance after that, trying to brush past her to leave. But then Mikai's voice suddenly echoed behind me. "I know you don't want to go abroad. Even after Fang Yuan and I tie the knot, there's no need for you to pack up and move out. Your mother and I are close friends. I'm more than willing to provide for you for the rest of your life. Those words made my eyes widen in sheer disbelief. Even Fang Yuan, who had come looking for her, froze like a statue. It wasn't until Fang Yuan's venomous, hateful glare pierced through me that I finally snapped back to reality. I fled from that place in a blur. The words Mitai uttered that day never even registered in my heart. I was focused solely on my immigration papers being finalized, so I could finally make my exit. But Fang Yuan refused to let me go so easily. On this particular day, Fang Yuan insisted on dragging me out for a shopping spree. However, shortly after getting in the car, I was drugged and passed out. The next time I opened my eyes, I found myself bound tightly on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Right next to me, Fang Yuan was tied up in the exact same manner. I struggled frantically, desperate to ask him why, but every word I tried to scream was stifled by the tape on my mouth, reducing my voice to pathetic, muffled whimpers. Fang Yuan seemingly read the confusion in my eyes and gave a chilling smirk. I didn't want to kidnap you, but Mitai's words that day have haunted me incessantly. I just need to prove once and for all who truly matters more to her. Hearing those words, a wave of profound desolation washed over my soul. What was there left to prove? Isn't the answer already painfully obvious? Soon enough, Mitai arrived, alerted by the kidnapper's message. Bolting toward us with 2 heavy briefcases filled with cash, she slammed the cases down. I've brought the money, now release them. But the kidnappers who were already acting under Fang Yuan's secret orders remained completely unmoved. They simply drawled, CEO me. I didn't kidnap these 2 just for the sake of money. Mikai's expression shifted instantly, her aura turning deathly cold. What are you implying? The kidnapper rested his hands on our shoulders, giving a sinister toothy grin. I heard that between these 2 men, one is your close friend's son, and the other is your fiancé. You can only save one. The other gets tossed into the ocean to feed the sharks. Make your choice. He loosened the rope slightly. The 2 of us dangling precariously over the abyss looked as though we were about to plummet into the depths. Mikai saved me. I don't want to die. Mikai's heart stopped for a beat as she panicked. Don't move, Fang Yuan. The answer was already clear. The kidnapper finally let out a satisfied smirk. Even Fang Yuan, who was playing the terrified victim, completely exhaled in relief. He gazed at Mitai, feigning deep emotional gratitude. But Mitai's eyes instinctively drifted toward me. She expected me to be shattered, drowning in despair. But my face was an emotionless mask of calm. Seeing that eerie tranquility on my features, she felt a sudden inexplicable surge of panic. But before she could speak, a freed Fang Yuan lunged into her arms with a sob. She instinctively pulled her beloved into a tight embrace. Fang Yuan said, but in the very next heartbeat, Mikai's pupils contracted in absolute horror. My rope was cut at the same time and my body plummeted directly toward the dark abyss of the sea. Flash! The freezing seawater completely consumed me. Countless currents clawed at me, dragging me into the void. I wanted to fight to claw my way back to the surface, but a bone-deep exhaustion slowly paralyzed my limbs. Finally, my eyelids grew impossibly heavy, and I spiraled into total darkness. When I finally regained consciousness in the hospital, I saw Mikai slumped beside my bed. Her bloodshot eyes were a testament to the fact that she had watched over me for days, but now I no longer craved her protection. We stared at each other for an eternity, anchored in a heavy, suffocating silence. I was the first to break the ice. Auntie Me, you don't need to stay here. Go check on Fang Yuan. He's the one who truly needs you. Feeling as though I hadn't made my point clear enough, I added one final sentence. I can take care of myself now. Mikai froze stunned. She searched my face with a complex, unreadable gaze for a long time, before finally standing up to leave. The day of my discharge happened to fall exactly on Fang Yuan's birthday, because it was their first birthday gala as an official couple. Mikai made sure the celebration was obscenely lavish. 10,000 roses flown in directly from France blanketed the entire venue. Piles of exorbitant gifts were tossed carelessly into corners, and intimate photos of the happy couple lined the path from the entrance to the ballroom. As brilliant fireworks detonated across the night sky, the banquet finally reached its grand climax. Mikai gripped Fang Yuan tightly by the waist, gliding across the floor to the rhythm of an elegant waltz. Meanwhile, on the massive LED screen behind them, a continuous loop was playing of the most intimate romantic moments between them. Just as the guests were being swept away by the beauty of their perfect love story, the screen suddenly flickered and went pitch black. A second later, scanned images of those childish love letters and sketches abruptly hijacked the display. My deepest, most desperate feelings for Mikai were laid bare for every single guest to witness. The entire ballroom erupted into chaos. I stared at the screen, my face drained of all color. I shredded those, I literally tore them into pieces. How is it possible for them to be appearing here? I wanted to charge forward and kill the power, but my feet felt as if they were bolted to the floor. I was paralyzed, forced to endure the tidal wave of mockery dragging me down. CEO Ma is literally getting married, yet the Yun family's son still won't give it a rest. How absolutely shameless. This is Mr. Fang's birthday gala, for God's sake. This is a blatant public declaration of war. Poor Mr. Fang, honestly. Even after marrying Mitai, he'll always have this creep lusting after his wife. The venomous whispers finally caught the attention of the couple in the spotlight. The moment she saw the contents of the screen, Fang Yuan's face turned a ghostly, horrific white. He glared at me, trembling with rage and feigned hurt, before bolting out of the hall with tears streaming down his face. Fang Yuan Mitai's heart skipped a beat. She made a move to chase after him immediately, but when she caught sight of me frozen like a statue, she stopped dead in her tracks. She swung her hand and delivered a staggering slap. Cracked, the entire room fell into a deafening silence. Yun Mo, I was wondering why you'd been acting so submissive lately. So this was the grand finale you had planned for me. The sheer violence behind the strike sent me crashing violently to the floor. My cheek blossomed into a painful swollen mess, and a trail of blood began to seep from the corner of my mouth. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears. I couldn't hear a single thing anymore, and my vision blurred into nothingness. My trembling hand reached up to touch my own face. The instant my fingers grazed the burning handprint, tears surged from my eyes, racing down my cheeks. This was the very first time Mikai had ever slapped me. But before I could even process the shock, her figure vanished through the main entrance. I sucked in a jagged breath, scrambling up from the floor to chase after her. Thunder rumbled ominously in a continuous roar, and then the heavens opened up in a torrential downpour. The entire world was swallowed by a wall of rain, and within it, the slender silhouette of the woman was desperately clutching a soaking wet man. He struggled violently against her, his voice dripping with pure despair. Today was supposed to be the most important day of my life, and yet he pulls a stunt like that? How can you expect me to stay there, since he's still clearly obsessed with you? I refuse to compete with a mere child. Maybe I should just give you back to him, no Fang Yuan. There is absolutely no way I could ever love him. You know damn well how long I've been in love with you. By trying to push me away. Are you trying to rip my heart out? As those words faded, she moved in to press her lips against his. But in the very next second, from the shadows nearby, a pair of blinding headlights barreled straight toward them. Having just caught up, I watched from a distance, and my entire vision was suddenly painted in blood red. I froze on the spot, paralyzed by horror. The red warning light above the ER ignited. Doctors moved in a frantic blur, attaching life support equipment to Michai's body to begin the emergency resuscitation. But Michai ignored her own critical injury, stubbornly demanding that they save Fang Yuan first. But CEO Mi, you're the one in the most critical condition. Her voice was weak and trembling. Ignore me. Save him first. Left with no other choice. The medical team had to rush the unconscious Fang Yuan into the operating theater first. A few moments later, a doctor sprinted out. The patient is hemorrhaging. Who among you has type A blood? Hearing this, Michai ignored the nurses and bolted from the bed. Take mine, use my blood. But CEO Mi, shut your mouth. Just do it, quickly. Soon, bag after bag of crimson blood filled the medical trays. Mikai's face turned a ghostly porcelain white. Only after confirming Fang Yuan was out of danger did she finally collapse onto the operating table to be wheeled into the emergency room herself. I couldn't endure the sight any longer. I turned around and walked away. It was undeniable now. Mikai cherished Fang Yuan more than her own life. If I had only accepted this truth in my past life, perhaps my end wouldn't have been so wretched. In this life, I tried to change the narrative's course. Yet Fang Yuan still ended up in a horrific crash. And all because of my love letters and sketches. I know for a fact I shredded them. The only person who could have salvaged them to leak in public was Fang Yuan himself. But why? Why would he go to such extreme lengths? I spent 3 days at home in a dissociative fog. Mikai was finally discharged. The very first thing she did upon her return was order the bodyguards to hurl me into the walk-in freezer. The moment I was thrown inside, a bone-chilling frost surged through my entire body. Staring at the endless sterile whiteness, I let out a bitter hollow laugh. I can't even remember the last time I felt this cold. Ever since I accidentally fell into an icy lake as a child, my health has been fragile and I've been pathologically sensitive to the cold. The villa was always kept heated, perpetually warm like spring. Yet now Mitai was using my greatest weakness to punish me. I instinctively curled my body into a ball, desperately trying to conjure a single spark of warmth. But it was futile. I could only let out a series of feeble shattered whimpers. Even the servants outside couldn't bear it. One whispered through the door, "Young Master Yoon, just swallow your pride, bow your head, and apologize to the young lady. With your constitution, how can you possibly survive this?" My eyes welled up with stinging tears. In my last life, I was the villain, I accept that. But in this life, I haven't done a single thing wrong. So what exactly am I supposed to apologize for? Besides, Mitai's heart belongs entirely to Fang Yuan. She would never listen to my side of the story. The freezing wind continued to howl. Thick layers of frost quickly crystallized over my eyelashes, and I felt my heartbeat slowing to a crawl. My thoughts grew hazy and fragmented, until finally my eyelids drifted shut. I spiraled into unconsciousness. When I finally came to, I was lying in my bedroom. Standing by the bedside was Mitai, her expression icy and detached. "After the massive disaster you caused this time, you should have been locked up for 3 whole days. But Fang Yuan is kind-hearted. He didn't want to hold a grudge, and he actually begged me to release you. I knew you still harbored these pathetic lingering feelings for me. But Yunmo, you'd better remember this. It's impossible for me to ever love a boy who is 12 years younger than me. You and I, we will never happen." As her words fell, the door slammed shut before my eyes. That thunderous bang drowned out the explanation I desperately wanted to give. I leaned back against the headboard, closing my eyes as I let out a heavy sigh, whispering, "Mikai, I truly don't love you anymore." The next few days, the house was a whirlwind of activity. Everyone in the entire villa was frantically preparing for the upcoming wedding of Michai and Fang Yuan. Every detail was being polished. While directing the staff, Fang Yuan enthusiastically grabbed my arm, as if all our previous animosity had simply evaporated. "The venue and decorations are almost finished. All we're missing now is a best man. I think Yunmo should do it to soak up some of the joy. Who knows, by the end of the night, you might even find a girlfriend among the bridesmaids." Fang Yuan's words were laced with mockery, lacking his talent for acting. I pulled my hand away from his grasp. Just as I was about to refuse, a cold female voice rang out, reminding him he cannot be the best man. Fang Yuan and I both turned to see Mikai standing behind us. "And why is that?" Fang Yuan asked, surprised by her rejection. Mikai remained silent, her eyes shifting toward me. Lately, I had been much more obedient, no longer pestering her. Yet at the mere thought of me finding a girlfriend, an inexplicable sense of suffocating frustration rose within her. She couldn't even voice the reason why. Mikai stood there in silence. Just as she was scrambling for an excuse, I spoke up. "I'm the younger brother figure. Being a best man wouldn't be appropriate. The truth was, I'm heading abroad immediately. There's no way I could attend this wedding anyway." Mikai nodded, following my lead, and Fang Yuan finally dropped the subject. I breathed a sigh of relief and turned to leave. But then I heard him say, "Since Yunmo can't be best man, then to show your sincere blessing, why don't you give me that suit? The one you personally designed. I'm absolutely obsessed with it." I glanced toward Mikai. "I designed that specific suit when I was 18. It won prestigious awards in design competitions. Countless heirs from elite families tried to buy it, wanting to wear it for their own weddings, but I refused. Because that suit was a treasure I kept for my future, to wear when I finally married the love of my life." Mikai knew its meaning but didn't want to disappoint Fang Yuan. So she opened her mouth. "Yumo, if you sell me this piece of clothing, I'll agree to any demand you make no matter what." I curled my lips slightly. "There's no need. Brother Fang Yuan is right. I really should offer you both my congratulations. If that's the case, then consider this suit my early wedding gift to the two of you." I called the boutique immediately, and soon the staff delivered the garment. I handed it over to Fang Yuan with my own hands. Fang Yuan clutched the suit, sprinting toward the fitting room in sheer delight to try it on. I watched his retreating figure with an empty gaze, then turned back to my room feeling neither grief nor joy. Only Mikai remained behind, staring at my back in deep thought. In the dead of night, I was in my room packing. My bags were almost ready. My paperwork was nearly finalized, and I would be able to vanish very soon. Just as I hid my suitcase and prepared for sleep, my bedroom door was violently kicked open. Mikai stormed in, bruising my wrist as she barked out a lecture. "What kind of trap did you set with that suit?" Fang Yuan only tried it on for a second, and now his entire body is itching uncontrollably, breaking out in a horrific red rash. Yunmo, are you actually trying to kill him? Under the dim amber glow of the lamp, Mikai's fury-filled gaze pierced through me, sharper than a blade threatening to tear me apart. I shook my head frantically. I never even touched that suit. There's no way I could have sabotaged it. And I have absolutely no reason to harm him. Mikai's face darkened with a chilling intensity, and she slammed me violently onto the bed. Her eyes were like frozen stars, cold and merciless. Her voice dripping with venom. No reason, Yunmo? I know you've never truly let go of your obsession with me. But of all the things to do, you should never have targeted Fang Yuan. You'd better pray to God that he's okay. Because if not before Mikai could finish her threat. The nanny burst into the room. Madam, it's terrible. Mr. Fang Yuan has completely collapsed. Watch him. Don't let him escape. Mikai spat out those words before sprinting out the door. The Mi residence remained brilliantly lit throughout the night. I sat on the sofa consumed by a restless anxiety, my nails digging so deep into my palms that blood began to seep. Yet I felt absolutely nothing. My eyes were glued to the ticking clock on the wall. I watched as the hour hand dragged itself from midnight all the way to 7 in the morning. The very instant the clock chimed the hour, hurried footsteps echoed from outside the door. Mikai's eyes were pitch black, brimming with a murderous aura that made my skin crawl and my scalp tingle. An icy dread surged from my feet, paralyzing my entire body. Mikai snatched a long whip from the servant's hand, advancing toward me step by agonizing step. Yunmo, do you have any idea how close Fang Yuan came to death? Fang Yuan almost died. After the initial shock wore off, a sudden realization hit me. In my previous life, this was the exact same time I was involved in that fatal car crash and died. I had no time to dwell on the coincidence. Staring at Mitai, who was ready to use family discipline on me, just to vent her frustrations for Fang Yuan, I felt my eyes burn with stinging tears. I did not touch that suit. I never once plotted to hurt him. From the kidnapping to the letters appearing at the banquet, to this incident with the wedding attire today, do you really not see how suspicious all of this is? Even if I wanted to frame him, I wouldn't be able to pull it off time after time, so perfectly without getting caught. I tried desperately to make her understand. I initially believed that after uttering these words, the habitually cautious Mikai would detect the glaring flaws. Instead, she was currently consumed by a tidal wave of fury. So you're suggesting that Fang Yuan has been framing you all along. He is the man I love and the one I'm going to marry. Why on earth would he fabricate lies to set you up? Mikai's voice was like a blade of ice. That is exactly what leaves me so bewildered. I honestly don't know. I was only halfway through my sentence when Mikai's arm hoisted high into the air and the whip lashed across my body with brutal force, eliciting a scream of pure agony. Yunmo, you truly are incorrigible. The color drained from my face instantly, a bitter hollow smirk twitching at the corners of my lips. Fang Yuan was the one she cherished above all else. Why did I still harbor even a shred of hope that she would actually believe me? I instinctively tried to scramble away, but bodyguards lunged forward from behind, pinning me ruthlessly to the cold floor. Yunmo, will you finally admit your fault? As the whip cracked down once again, Mikai's voice erupted in a thunderous roar. I was trembling violently from the sheer pain, yet my hands were clenched tight as I refused to let out a sound. Seeing my continued silence, Mikai's whip viciously tore into my back once more. I'm asking you one last time. Do you admit to your crimes? But as I lay on the floor, I bit my lip hard, refusing to speak. I did nothing wrong, so why should I confess? Witnessing my unwavering defiance, Mikai completely lost her temper. The whip rained down upon my back strike after strike. Soon, my entire back was a mangled mess of blood and flesh. Yet I still refused to utter a false confession. Eventually, the butler standing nearby couldn't bear to watch, stepping forward to catch Mikai's whip. Miss, if you continue this, you're going to kill him. Only then did Mikai finally lower her hand, tossing the blood-stained whip aside with chilling indifference. Yunmo, don't let there be a next time. My strength finally evaporated, my head thudding against the floor, as I spiraled into total unconsciousness. Mikai didn't return home for the next several days. I had been lashed until I was a bloody, broken mess, the agony making it physically impossible to even leave my bed. I spent days in that room nursing my wounds alone, before I was finally able to climb out of bed and walk. The day my wounds finally closed, the Immigration Bureau notified me that my residency was approved. Now that my permanent visa is in hand, I have absolutely no reason to stay in this house anymore. After grabbing my official documents, I returned to pack the final remnants of my life, and grip my suitcase ready to vanish. But the moment I stepped out, I ran straight into Mikai. Yunmo, how old are you really? Still playing these pathetic little runaway games? I've warned you countless times already. You are strictly forbidden from harboring those feelings for me. Yet you remain utterly incorrigible, repeatedly trying to sabotage and harm Fang Yuan. So tell me, was I really wrong? To punish you for your actions. Mikai's voice was like ice. Hearing her words, I felt nothing but an overwhelming, soul-crushing fatigue. I honestly don't know how many more times I have to say it, or how many ways I have to prove I'm over her, before she finally believes me. Seeing my heavy, hollow silence, Mikai's expression grew even more ominous. Finally, she massaged her temples and sighed. Whatever. Maybe getting out to clear your head is for the best. Fang Yuan hasn't been doing well lately, and I'm buried in wedding preparations. If you stay here, there's no telling what kind of twisted stunt you'll pull next. With that, she snatched the handle of my luggage. I'll drive you to the airport myself. I didn't offer a rebuttal, nor did I waste my breath on an explanation. I simply followed behind her like a shadow. The car sped along the highway toward the terminal. As I silently grabbed my bags to exit the vehicle, she finally bothered to ask one single question. Which destination did you book a ticket for? My lips twitched slightly, but before I could utter a word, she cut me off with a chillingly detached tone. Just stick to the nearby cities and have some fun. Don't you dare wander off too far. Once Fang Yuan and I finish the wedding, I'll come and bring you back home. This time, I didn't bother fighting back. I just submissively whispered, I understand. After that final goodbye, I hauled my luggage into the airport under her watchful gaze. Only when her car had completely vanished into the traffic did I finally pull out my phone. I silently blacklisted every single one of Mikai's numbers and walked toward the boarding gate without a second thought. Bring me back home. No thanks, Mikai. I'm never setting foot in that place again. 1 week later, the wedding of the century between the Mi and Fang families began. Considering Fang Yuan was still recovering from his trauma, the ceremony proceedings were kept relatively brief. But even with the condensed schedule, the sheer opulence of the event left every guest breathless. Before the attendees even entered the hall, staff presented each person with a luxury gift bag, valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars. As the guests took their seats, everything they touched was a bespoke masterpiece. The venue was carpeted in blooming Juliet roses, specifically cultivated by Mikai for Fang Yuan a decade ago. The ceiling was a galaxy of diamonds and crystals, another custom design Mikai conceptualized just for him. Even the dinner plates set before the guests were tailored to Fang Yuan's specific tastes, handcrafted by legendary grandmasters of the craft. Every square inch of the wedding venue screamed of Mitai's profound obsessive devotion to Fang Yuan. The guests whispered among themselves, their voices thick with envy. CEO Mai and Mr. Fang are truly goals, aren't they? I heard they've been childhood sweethearts since the beginning. Isn't it obvious? Word is CEO Mi almost died herself, just to pull Mr. Fang out of that wreckage. Man, if I could marry someone like CEO Mi, I'd say my life was a total success. The crowd gossiped about Mikai and Fang Yuan's epic romance. Calculating the time in her head, I should have landed and checked into my hotel by yesterday evening. Yet from last night until this very moment, Mikai hadn't received a single phone call from me. Not even a simple text message appeared on her screen. After all, before my mother went abroad, she had explicitly entrusted my safety to her care. If something actually happened to me, she'd have a hell of a time explaining it to my mother. Thinking of this, she finally decided to shoot me a quick text. How are you doing right now? The second the message was sent, the wedding coordinator knocked on the door. Miss Mie, the ceremony is about to commence. Please head down to prepare for your grand entrance. Mikai hastily tossed her phone onto the nearby table. I'm coming. The moment Mikai clicked the door shut, the screen of her phone, which hadn't yet gone dark, flickered. Next to the text message she had just sent him, a glaring blood-red exclamation mark suddenly appeared. Amidst the swelling melodies of the piano, Mikai stood at the end of the floral aisle with eyes full of warmth, watching Fang Yuan slowly glide toward her. This was supposed to be the most exhilarating moment of her life, yet her heart felt strangely eerily hollow. As she watched Fang Yuan approaching her step by step, her mind began to wander uncontrollably, and my silhouette suddenly flickered before her eyes. In her vision, it was me, dressed in a grand formal wedding suit, walking toward her, with eyes brimming with the ocean of devotion, tenderly whispering her name, Mikai. The ghostly image shimmering in Mitai's vision suddenly merged with the reality of Fang Yuan's approach. Fang Yuan waved his hand slightly at her, calling out her name with a look of genuine concern. Mikai, is something wrong? Mikai snapped back to her senses, instinctively shaking her head to banish my lingering image from her thoughts. She forced a gentle practiced smile. It's nothing. You look stunning today. That casual bit of romantic flattery caused Fang Yuan's ears to flush a deep crimson. Shortly after, the officiant directed the couple to join hands, before beginning to recite the sacred wedding vows, asking Mitai if she was willing to take this man as her husband. Mikai, who should have answered without a heartbeat of hesitation, suddenly fell into a heavy, abrupt silence. Her gaze drifted from Fang Yuan's hopeful, expectant face to the sea of guests below, all watching with bated breath. Finally, her eyes landed on the grand empty entrance doors. A long time ago, I had once made a bold, defiant declaration that if she ever dared to marry another man, I would storm the venue and steal her away. Mikai knew that wasn't just some hollow threat. Because of that, she had specifically stationed a small army of guards at the door today to prevent me from crashing the ceremony. But now with the wedding more than halfway over, the boy who swore he'd come for her was nowhere to be seen. It was exactly what she wanted. Yet she didn't feel the slightest bit of joy. Could it be possible that just as I claimed, I've truly stopped loving her? The moment that thought surfaced, Mikai ruthlessly crushed it. That's impossible. My obsession with her was absolute. For me to simply stop loving her would be a fate more agonizing than death itself. He must be playing hard to get, she mused. At that realization, a flash of coldness flickered in her eyes. No matter my tactics, she would never fall for me. The only soul she would ever cherish was Fang Yuan. Stealing her resolve, she quickly reeled in her straying thoughts and refocused her gaze on the bridegroom before her. With solemn precision, she declared, Fang Yuan, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, I take you to be my husband, and I will never forsake you. In this life, and every life to follow you are mine alone. That heavy, passionate vow caused Fang Yuan's eyes to brim with sudden tears. He responded with equal fervor, pulling her into a desperate, fiery embrace. The ceremony proceeded with flawless execution. None of the chaos Mitai dreaded ever came to pass. The interruption she had anticipated never happened. Her husband remained perfect throughout the day, showing no signs of hesitation or regret. Even her closest friends showered her with praise, remarking that on her wedding day, she seemed more focused and sincere than ever before. Yet only Mikai knew the haunting truth. She wasn't truly present at her own wedding. A persistent shadow lingered in her mind, constantly resurfacing to disrupt her composure. The moment Fang Yuan retired to their room to rest, Mikai demanded the butler bring her phone immediately. When she saw that glaring red exclamation mark in the chat, her entire body froze into a statue of shock. In all the years I had clashed with her, I had never once blocked her number. It seems he's really committing to this act. Mikai muttered, massaging her temples in frustration. She reflexively dialed my number anyway. As the ringing tone echoed in her ear, she already had her scripted response prepared. Yunmo, I'm sorry. The number you have dialed is currently powered off. Please try again later. Mikai slammed the phone face down onto the table with a violent thud. Fine Yunmo, you've really outdone yourself this time. How dare you actually have the nerve to block me? Mikai decided she was done catering to my whims. She was convinced that when the time came for her to fetch me, I would inevitably crawl back to her side like a loyal dog. After all, I was so hopelessly obsessed with her. Even with her being married, I'd never have the heart to truly leave. With that thought, Mitai's rigid expression finally softened a bit. However, my mother had entrusted me to her guardianship. If something actually happened, she'd be unable to give an account. So she picked up the phone and dialed a different number. Track down which city Yunmo traveled to. Once you find him, head over there and keep an eye on him. That night, after she had coaxed Fang Yuan to sleep, there was a soft, persistent knock at the bedroom door. Ensuring Fang Yuan remained undisturbed in his slumber, she slipped out of bed with cat-like silence. But the very moment the door clicked shut behind her, Fang Yuan's eyes snapped open in the darkness. In the study, her face was a mask of fury. Say that again. Where exactly did he go? The assistant swallowed hard, visibly trembling. We've scrubbed every travel record within the country, but there's absolutely no trace of young Master Yunmo. Furthermore, all of his domestic ID documents have been revoked. We suspect he has fled the country entirely. As for his specific destination, we have no lead. This barrage of information left her stunned into a deafening silence. A slow burning rage began to incinerate her composure. She thought I was merely playing games by blocking her. never imagining I'd secretly flee the country for good. Seeing her frozen in thought, the assistant gathered his courage and spoke her name again. She took a jagged deep breath, forcing the explosive anger back down. Not yet. Just keep searching. The assistant stared at her for a long, lingering beat, before finally nodding and turning to depart. He walked straight into Fang Yuan, who was lurking at the door. Sir, the assistant blurted out, catching Mikai's attention. Her expression shifted instantly into a facade of calm. She grabbed the blanket from her chair and walked toward Fang Yuan. Why are you awake, darling? Are you feeling the chill? She spoke softly while draping the blanket over Fang Yuan's shoulders, chafing his hands to bring back the warmth. Fang Yuan offered a subtle smile, yet his words were laced with deep concern. I couldn't sleep without you, so I came to find you. I just happened to overhear you and the assistant. Why would Yunmo leave the country? Is it because of me? As he finished, his eyes welled with tears, and he hung his head in a display of self-reproach. She reflexively pulled him close, kissing his hair tenderly. How could it be your fault? He's just a brat. He's throwing a tantrum. Just ignore him. But the unease in Fang Yuan's eyes didn't fade. He clutched the corner of her shirt, gazing up at her. But the Yun family entrusted his care to you. What if something terrible happens to him? She gently wiped the moisture from his eyes, her tone suddenly turning frigid. Let something happen. Maybe it'll finally teach him a much-needed lesson about running off whenever he pleases. Seeing how little she actually cared for me, Fang Yuan could no longer suppress his smug satisfaction. He quickly buried his face against her chest, hiding a sinister, triumphant grin. Yunmo, you'd better make sure you never come back. Though she feigned indifference, she was secretly scouring the globe for me. Yet the answer was always the same: nothing. Week 1, no sign. Month 1, still nothing. After the assistant timidly delivered the news, she remained frozen in her office chair, eventually gesturing for him to leave in silence. Once the door clicked shut, she slumped against the backrest in total exhaustion, pinching the bridge of her nose in frustration. She had assumed my departure was just a petty fit, a protest against her marrying Fang Yuan. But after all this time, there was still no trace of me. In a daze, she recalled my words about not loving her, and my vow to stay as far away as possible. She was so convinced of my undying love that she never believed I'd leave. So she had dismissed my warnings as empty noise. Now she realized she was the only one who hadn't taken it seriously. She lowered her hand and glanced at her desk. A framed photo of the two of us used to sit in that corner, but from the moment I confessed my feelings, she had tossed that memory into the trash, replacing it with a wedding portrait of her and Fang Yuan. She looked around the room, remembering how this office used to be saturated with traces of my presence, but now every single one of them has vanished. She stared intently at that empty corner for an eternity, finally picking up her phone to call Mother Yun. She was the one entrusted with my care. Now that I've gone missing, she felt the heavy burden of her guilt. But once the call connected, before Mikai could even utter a word, a cold mechanical voice echoed, I'm sorry. The number you have dialed is currently powered off. Mikai's mind went completely blank. A wave of sinister foreboding surging through her heart. Her hand froze around the phone for a long beat before she lowered it. She and my mother were the closest of friends despite the age gap. Their bond had always been unbreakable. How could she possibly be blacklisted? Mikai racked her brain but couldn't find a single lead. Just then, the assistant who had left suddenly returned, cradling a massive mysterious box. CEO Me. There's a delivery for you. The courier insisted that it must be opened by you personally. Mikai froze, staring at the box for an agonizingly long time. Finally, she motioned for the assistant to place it on the desk before her. The moment her fingers brushed the twine securing the package, her heart began to thud violently against her ribs. She had a sickening intuition that opening this box would plunge her into a bottomless dark abyss. After a moment of agonizing hesitation, Mikai's clenched fist slowly relaxed, and she gradually pulled the cord loose from the box. The instant she saw what was hidden inside, her eyes stretched wide in absolute shock. Resting right at the top was a glaring note. A few bold, oversized characters seared themselves into Mikai's retinas, evidence regarding Fang Yuan's criminal activities. The world around Mikai went dead silent. With trembling hands, she pulled the contents out one by one. The more she read, the more deathly pale her face became. Back at the Mi estate, Fang Yuan was basking in the sun, half asleep and drifting off, until a sharp, persistent ringtone shattered the silence. He frowned, his eyes barely half open, and swiped to answer without even checking the caller ID. Who is this? In the next heartbeat, a venomous voice hissed from the other end. Oh, did you forget about me the moment you successfully climbed the ladder? Fang Yuan's hand stiffened on the phone as he let out a cold sneer. Forget? How could I possibly forget? You're easily the most incompetent assassin I've ever encountered. I paid you an absolute fortune, and yet you couldn't even manage to kill that one person. If I were you, I'd have ended my own life long ago. While Fang Yuan was embroiled in his toxic call, a dark silhouette quietly materialized behind the glass door. Even the vibrant, newly bloomed roses couldn't mask the murderous depth of Mikai's gaze. The very instant Fang Yuan disconnected the call, she silently pushed open the glass door and began stalking toward him step by agonizing step. In the next heartbeat, a blood-curdling scream erupted from the glass conservatory. Boom, a colossal thunderclap coupled with lightning ripped the sky apart. In the deluge, a body completely drenched in crimson was frantically hoisted by a group of panicked servants and shoved into a waiting ambulance. Underneath him, Fang Yuan's blood pooled on the pavement, only to be washed away by the relentless torrents of rain. A pair of polished black leather shoes trampled through the faint swirling stains of blood as she walked away into the distance. The chaos at the Mi estate didn't reach me in far-off England. Before reuniting with my mother, I meticulously examined my body, ensuring no one could spot the lingering scars of my ordeal, before I finally felt safe returning to the UK. Back at the Yun family home, the tragedies of my past life and the shadows of my history were all meant to end with my departure. I didn't want my mother or my future fiancé to ever lose sleep over those dark chapters. But I had no idea that upon my return to the family, two people had already secretly investigated my past. One of them, naturally, was my mother. From the moment she established herself in England, she had been desperate to bring me over. Yet I had stubbornly refused to leave all for Mikai's sake. My sudden change of heart and arrival didn't fit my character at all. So mother secretly dug into my history back home. When those gruesome blood-stained photos were finally laid out before her eyes, the woman who had been calm her entire life exploded in rage. Her son, whom she had cherished like a precious jewel, was being tormented by the person she thought she could trust. And for Mikai to treat her son with such cruelty, all for the sake of a person burdened with the legacy of a multiple murderer. As fury surged from the depths of her soul, Mother realized she had gravely misjudged that woman. Perhaps her son hadn't been perfect in his actions, and Mitai could have simply called her to handle the situation. Instead, she kept Mother in the dark, while repeatedly trying to push her son to his grave. If not for the fact that Mikai had once genuinely looked after me, Mother would have already stormed back home for blood. After a long cold moment of contemplation, Mother decided to sever all ties with the Mi family. Every cent the Mi family had ever spent on me was calculated and repaid tenfold, transferred directly into the Mi family's accounts. As for the emotional debt owed to Mikai, I consider it fully paid in blood and tears. Finally, as a thanks for Mitai's brutal discipline of her son, Mother compiled the damning evidence of Fang Yuan's years of criminal activities into 2 separate dossiers. One copy was sent directly to the Mi residence, and the other was delivered straight to the local police. Mother originally intended to sit me down and discuss it, but seeing my desperate avoidance of the past, she ultimately chose to remain silent. As for the other person digging into my history, it was none other than my fiancée Liu Ruyan. As my future wife, and a key member of the Liu family's future, she naturally had to vet her fiancé's true nature, to avoid any messy misunderstandings later on. Upon discovering my ordeal with the Mi family, Liu Ruyan was equally stunned, and then consumed by a wave of pure heartache. In her eyes, everyone has the sovereign right to pursue love. Though my early pursuit of Mitai was admittedly obsessed, I had eventually done everything in my power to flee. Yet Mitai refused to let go. Moreover, the blame for this mess fell squarely on Mikai. A simple check would have exposed her true love's filth. Regrettably, she was blinded by her own delusional romance. Thinking of this, Liu Ruyan's eyes flickered with the disdain one has for a fool. She then tossed the entire file into the brazier, watching the documents being instantly swallowed by flames, leaving absolutely no trace behind. Oblivious to all of this, I was currently standing before rows of formal attire, agonizing over which one to pick. Although my father had arranged a fiancée for me, I hadn't actually met her since arriving in England. When I first touched down, my health was in shambles, requiring a long period of bed rest to recover. She sent gifts and scouts to check on me during that time, but this would be our first official face-to-face. I'd seen her photos, but I had no clue about her personality, so I was putting a massive amount of weight on this date, terrified of making some kind of social faux pas. In the end, I chose a meticulously tailored suit. The deep charcoal hue radiated a calm, composed energy, and the slim fit perfectly accentuated my upright posture. Paired with a minimalist tie, it was low-key yet high-class. I even took extra care styling my hair, until it looked sharp and flawless. As I walked through the massive doors held open by the staff, I immediately spotted her by the castle's floor-to-ceiling windows, the woman standing up to welcome me. If Mikai was like the abyssal ice of a frozen trench, then Liu Ruyan was the radiant warmth of the spring sun. I hadn't initially believed my mother's claims about their family legacy. I'd done some basic digging into the Liu family background. The public records could be summed up in one word: chaotic. While Liu Ruyan's direct lineage followed a repetitive tradition, the side branches were a complete and utter mess, riddled with more illegitimate children than one could count. Moreover, Liu Ruyan's specific branch lived alongside so many diverse siblings, no one could guarantee she wouldn't be negatively influenced. But today I realized my preconceptions were incredibly shallow. The moment I took my seat, Liu Ruyan took the initiative to introduce herself, handing me a dossier of information as she spoke. Every burning question I had was answered in those pages. Throughout the date, she constantly looked after me, refilling my tea and handing me napkins with practiced grace. The entire experience felt incredibly relaxing and natural. I found myself carefully observing this woman who was 6 years my senior. Her features were soft and elegant, her eyes shimmering with genuine tenderness and concern, and a faint serene smile never left her lips. A thought suddenly flashed through my mind. Spending a lifetime married to someone like her wouldn't be bad at all. As the date drew to a close, Liu Ruyan thoughtfully drove me back home. Perhaps I was too engrossed in the conversation with her because I failed to notice the road opposite the Yun estate, where a pitch-black Maybach sat lurking in the shadows, hidden beneath the shadows of the low bushes. Behind the pitch-black tint of the car windows, a pair of deep hollow eyes were fixated directly on the Maserati I was riding in. For 3 entire months, this was the first time Mikai had laid eyes on me again. From the day the ugly truth finally unraveled, it took Mitai a full week just to process reality that the man she utterly loathed me was actually the victim of a frame-up, while her beloved soulmate, Fang Yuan, was the cold-blooded murderer. Initially, Mikai couldn't accept it at all. She couldn't fathom that the childhood friend she adored, that idealized white moonlight everyone worshipped, was actually a ruthless monster behind closed doors. That day after Fang Yuan woke up in the hospital, he spent the entire time kneeling by her side, sobbing hysterically. Faced with such irrefutable hard evidence, Fang Yuan didn't even dare to make up more excuses. He could only desperately repeat to the woman before him that he only committed those atrocities out of love. As for the other victims he had maimed or broken, Mikai's other suitors, it was for the same twisted reason. He refused to let anyone else even lay eyes on his woman. Pure delusion. So Fang Yuan took it upon himself to make them all vanish. Vile. That was the only word Mikai could muster. After Fang Yuan finished his pathetic confession, in that instant she even began to doubt. If the person standing there was actually Fang Yuan, was this really the kind, radiant man from her cherished memories? That night, not a single soul in the Mi or Fang families slept. The Fangs wanted to sweep the scandal under the rug. After all, in the world of the elite, no one's hands are truly clean. Mother Fang herself had personally dealt with several mistresses, so she brushed off Fang Yuan's heinous behavior as nothing more than excessive passion. Besides, Fang Yuan had already paid a heavy price. He had nearly lost his life because of it. The Mi family, however, adamantly demanded that Mikai divorce Fang Yuan immediately. After all, the Mi family would never allow a man with several lives on his head to remain the husband of their daughter. Just as the two families were locked in a heated shouting match, a squad of police officers burst through the doors and hauled Fang Yuan away right in front of everyone. Overnight, the Mi family exploded across the trending searches. The once envied couple of the Mi family was destroyed. The husband was dragged off to a prison cell, while the bride was confined to a hospital bed. Both families spiraled into a vortex of absolute chaos. Yet Mitai was far beyond caring about the fallout. Her soul burned with a desperate need to find me and beg for mercy. But I had vanished, leaving no trace for her to follow. The elite search teams she deployed returned with nothing but the same hollow failure. Mikai, the once invincible queen of the business world, was finally brought to her knees by these crushing blows, ending up bedridden and broken. She stared blankly out the window with hollow dead eyes, looking exactly like a puppet with its string severed. It was only in this agonizing silence that Mitai realized the horrific magnitude of her sins. She had become a cold-blooded executioner, dragging the only person who truly loved her straight into hell. Every time she dared to close her eyes, her mind was haunted by the vivid, tear-stained face of a boy drowning in despair. She could still hear my broken, desperate pleas for help. But back then, how did she respond? She chose to ignore it. She refused to listen. She didn't care. When Mikai finally returned to the villa, she was greeted only by a cold, echoing emptiness. In the past, whenever she stepped through that door, a familiar tall silhouette would always manifest from the shadows behind her, tenderly whispering her name. Back then, she would offer a doting smile and engage in our playful banter. Sometimes her friends would even joke, saying I wasn't just a ward to her, but more like a child groom she was raising. Even during late-night drinks, some would drunkenly probe her, asking if she harbored any secret desires for me. Every single time, Mikai's denial was swift and absolute. Putting aside our 10-year age gap, that massive decade difference made her view me as nothing more than a naive child. Besides, her heart had always belonged to Fang Yuan. From the very first moment she laid eyes on him, she decided he was her one and only destiny. As for those rare flickering sparks she felt, whenever she looked into my eyes, she chose to dismiss them entirely. In the middle of the now desolate villa, he found himself drawn to my room as if possessed. The space remained frozen exactly as it was when I vanished, feeling as though at any given second, I might suddenly spring out from some hidden corner just to startle her. Mai Kai stood paralyzed at the threshold for an eternity before stepping inside. She didn't do much, simply tracing a path through every inch of the room. With every single step, the sight of my belongings triggered vivid echoes of the past. Arriving at the desk, she slowly pulled open the drawer. This place was once overflowing with my devotion to her, yet now it was nothing but a hollow void. In a daze, she could almost see the shredded remains of those love letters and portraits, while the sound of my voice saying I no longer loved her rang in her ears. A sharp stabbing agony constricted her heart. She couldn't help but double over, her fingers white-knuckled as she gripped the edge of the drawer, veins popping from the strain. Finally, as the physical pain receded, a surge of inexplicable emotion replaced the torment. Just as Mitai tried to pinpoint the source of this feeling, the assistant burst in, shouting breathlessly, I found him. And so, casting aside her confusion, she rushed to the United Kingdom, arriving at the gates of the Yun estate. She was desperate to see me, starving for the chance to beg for my forgiveness in person. But despite being here for half a month, she hadn't even managed to cross the threshold of the Yun house. Seeing the Yun servants glare at her like she was a sworn enemy, even a fool would understand the reason why. Left with no other choice, she could only linger outside until today. When she finally spotted me, a spark of joy flickered in her eyes. She frantically shoved the car door open, the name Amo poised on the tip of her tongue. But in the next heartbeat, she froze dead in her tracks. The moment I stepped out of the vehicle, a tall, elegant figure followed closely behind me, intimately hooking her arm into mine. The gift in Mitai's hand hit the pavement with a thud, and a wave of irrational fury began to boil in her chest. Yunmo hearing that hauntingly familiar voice from afar. My entire body locked up, and a surge of primal terror instantly paralyzed my soul. I knew that voice all too well. Every time I laid a finger on Mitai's white moonlight, she would venomously bark my full name just like that, sensing the violent tremors racking my body. A flash of lethal frost flickered in Liu Ruyan's eyes. She instantly soothed me with a firm pat on my back, and gently ushered me back into the safety of the car. Before sealing the door shut, she squeezed my hand reassuringly, don't worry, I'll handle everything. The moment the car door clicked shut, Liu Ruyan no longer bothered to mask her absolute disdain. She whipped around with predatory speed and unleashed a brutal punch, viciously smashing it into Mitai's face as she approached. In the past, Mai Kai would have easily evaded such a strike, but her physical state had withered so drastically that she could only watch helplessly as she was leveled, clinging to the pavement, unable to find her footing. Amidst the relentless pouring rain, Liu Ruyan took an umbrella from the Yun family butler and looked down on the fallen Mikai with regal indifference. That hollow, emotionless gaze was the ultimate provocation, stabbing Mitai's pride like a jagged blade to the heart. As a bolt of lightning fractured the sky, Liu Ruyan retracted the umbrella and climbed into the car. The Maserati glided smoothly into the Yun estate, and the massive iron gates slammed shut with a heartless clank, severing the connection between their two worlds. As for why Mikai had suddenly appeared, I refused to let my mind wander toward the reason. From the second I walked away from Mikai, she became nothing more than a stranger to me. My only goal was to cherish the life I had now. Liu Ruyan shared that exact sentiment. Perhaps it was a woman's innate sense of possessiveness, but she wouldn't allow her fiancé to waste even a single glance on another woman. And so, they both maintained a silent pact to never speak of the encounter. At the dinner table, after changing her clothes, Liu Ruyan sat close beside me, discussing wedding dates with my mother across the table. I had no objections to offer. I simply sat there in silence, focused on my meal, occasionally providing a brief thought when asked. Liu Ruyan's attention was split perfectly in half on the logistics of the ceremony and half on me. One moment she was peeling shrimp for me, the next she was gently wiping my fingertips with a napkin. My ears flushed a deep burning crimson. Even though she had doted on me like this during our date, I still felt a wave of bashful shyness wash over me. Back then, my mother took care of me constantly while in the country, but when I was only 6, she moved abroad. The tiny version of myself was then taken in by Mikai. Mikai certainly spoiled me in her own way, but when it came to life's small daily tasks, she insisted on forging my independence. Unless I was deathly ill, Mikai almost never lifted a finger to help me. Especially after she and Fang Yuan officially got together, my status in the Mi household plummeted into the abyss. Now Liu Ruyan has become the second woman to ever care for me with such meticulous devotion. She treats me as if I were a precious, fragile infant, terrified that I might suffer even the slightest mishap. I mean, I'm clearly a full-grown adult now, and she's doing all this right in front of my mother. I bit my lip, but still ate the shrimp Liu Ruyan had peeled for me. As a small gesture of gratitude, I served her a warm bowl of soup in return. Careful, it's hot, I whispered, while handing it over. Liu Ruyan paused for a split second, stunned, before her eyes crinkled into a grateful, radiant smile. Mother watched the two of us radiating such sweet affection, her face beaming with pure unadulterated relief. After dinner concluded, Mother and Liu Ruyan retired to the study together. Half an hour later, Liu Ruyan emerged to bid me farewell for the evening. I hurriedly stood up to escort her to the door. Even though this was technically our first real meeting, I felt a strange lingering reluctance to let her leave, yet I had no idea how to voice those feelings, without Liu Ruyan getting the wrong idea about me. Liu Ruyan caught every bit of my hesitation and longing. She let out a soft melodious chuckle, gently squeezing my hand. "See you tomorrow." My eyes lit up. I looked up at her, unable to hide my pleasant surprise. The amusement in Liu Ruyan's eyes deepened, and after one last embrace, she elegantly stepped into her car. I watched until the gates cut off my view, only then turning back to the villa with a heavy heart. Outside the manor, Liu Ruyan spotted that same Maybach. The pitch-black windows masked the driver's expression, but she didn't give it a second thought. She simply toyed with the prayer beads around her wrist. Over the following month, the chemistry between Liu Ruyan and me skyrocketed. Meanwhile, Mitai was summoned back home by a dozen frantic calls, and immediately became buried in a mountain of crisis. With Fang Yuan behind bars, the Fang family launched a relentless assault on the Mi household. Her pampered mother was harassed until she was hospitalized, and while her father was en route to the office, a Fang family vehicle rammed his car, sending him to the ICU. Under the weight of the scandal, Mi family stocks plummeted into the abyss. By the time Mikai stabilized the wreckage and returned to England, she was blindsided by the news of my formal engagement. She gripped the invitation with such violent force that the expensive cardstock buckled and creased. The decorative crystals tore into her palm, and fresh blood began to stain the elegant invitation crimson. Yet she was numb to the pain, crushing the card into a jagged ball. This can't be happening. I once swore I'd marry no one but her. How could I be with another? My Kai was a volatile cocktail of fury and pure agony. She ordered her driver to floor it toward the massive castle, where my engagement gala was being held. The upper level was reserved for the inner circles of the Yun and Liu families, while the lower floor hosted their elite business partners. My Kai couldn't even gain access to the bottom floor. Her dark murderous aura made the security guards tremble, yet they remained at their post, dutifully blocking her path. "Our deepest apologies, Miss Mi. The host explicitly stated you are strictly forbidden from entering." My Kai stared intensely at the lead guard for an eternity, a self-deprecating bitter smirk finally playing on her lips. Standing amidst a relentless swirling snowstorm, my Kai, clad only in a thin coat, gazed up toward the second floor. Through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, I was visible, draped in a pristine white suit, gliding through a dance with Liu Ruyan's waist in my hand. As the melody faded to a close, the two of us shared a soul-stirring kiss beneath a canopy of fireworks. That sight felt like a serrated blade across Mikai's eyes. It was only in this moment of devastating clarity that she realized she had long since fallen for me. By the time of this final engagement, she had already, without even her own knowledge, surrendered her heart to the boy who used to chase her. But she had treated that affection like a shameful anomaly, viciously suppressing it in the darkest corners of her soul. Time and time again, she had crushed those feelings, only for them to resurface with more intensity. Now they erupted all at once in a volcanic surge. My Kai felt as though a giant hand was crushing her heart, the pressure so immense she could barely breathe. And in that fleeting heartbeat, she wanted to cast everything aside and storm in, rushing upstairs to seize my hand and scream that she loved me, to confess that she was the one who failed me, and to beg for a single chance to make amends. However, the brutal reality was that her feet felt as if they were bolted to the frozen earth, leaving her entirely paralyzed. The pale, relentless snow blanketed her figure, yet the biting cold of the storm couldn't compare to the frost in her heart. She could only watch helplessly, as the boy who once worshipped her more than life itself stood proudly beside another woman, whispering sweet, soul-stirring vows. The genuine adoration and joy dancing in my eyes were expressions she hadn't witnessed in an eternity. In a daze, she recalled a rainy night from long ago. The deluge that day was as heavy as today's blizzard. The same distance of a building stood between them, separated by a single pane of glass. She and Fang Yuan were lost in a passionate embrace within the warm villa, while I remained on my knees in the torrential rain all night, watching their intimate display for hours on end. That night, she had seen with her own eyes the light in the boy's eyes darken into utter despair, until he finally closed his eyes and collapsed heavily to the ground. Now she was finally experiencing it firsthand. The exact same agony and hopelessness I felt back then. The human snowman standing before the castle gradually drew the curious gazes of the many guests. People gathered by the floor-to-ceiling windows, sipping their comforting hot cocoa, while murmuring in low hushed tones, wondering which lovesick fool this snowman could possibly be. Eventually, even the two protagonists of the gala were drawn toward the massive windows. The moment I recognized the face of the frozen figure, I felt a flicker of surprise. But after that initial shock, a sense of mockery took over. I had heard whispers of the scandals back home. My Kai's pure and flawless soulmate had now become a synonym for malice and cruelty. And the vicious little boy she once loathed in her heart turned out to be the most innocent victim of all. The complete reversal of these two roles had finally forced Mikai to wake up to the horror of her past actions. That's why she traveled thousands of miles to England to find me. That's why in the middle of this heavy snowfall, she was putting on this performance of devotion. My grip on my glass tightened slightly. In the end, I nonchalantly shifted my gaze away. My voice dripped with pure sarcasm. If Fang Yuan hadn't been exposed, I likely wouldn't have received an apology even on my deathbed. Humans are pathetic like that. They only wait until the truth is shoved in their faces, only realizing the weight of their loss when it's far too late. Liu Ruyan, standing beside me, remained silent, simply pulling me into a warm, silent embrace to offer her wordless comfort. One by one, the castle lights began to flicker out. The luxury cars in the snow-covered lot departed one after another until the massive castle gates were sealed shut, and Mitai, left shivering in the snow, received nothing. This brutal blizzard plunged Mitai back into a state of high fever and delirium. In her hazy, half-conscious state, she called out my name over and over again. Her assistant, unable to bear the sight of her suffering, exhausted every connection they had overnight just to beg me for one final hospital visit. Ultimately, the assistant only received a recording sent by one of Liu Ruyan's servants. In the sterile, silent hospital room, Michai sat alone. She stared at the recording in her hand, hesitating for an eternity, before finally pressing the play button. After a brief burst of static, my voice echoed through the room. If Fang Yuan hadn't been exposed, I likely wouldn't have received an apology even on my deathbed. Humans are pathetic like that. They only wait until the truth is shoved in their faces, only realizing the weight of their loss when it's far too late. but I have absolutely no need for such a belated gesture. I have no desire to keep dredging up the past, or to remain entangled with Mikai. Doing so would only bring me unnecessary grief, serving no purpose whatsoever. To never cross paths again. To never lay eyes on each other for the rest of our lives. That is the best possible conclusion for us. A few short, cold sentences. Yet Mitai replayed them until the words lost meaning. She desperately searched for any sign that the audio was faked, but she was far too familiar with the cadence of my voice. She knew instantly that these were my genuine words. There was no possibility of a forgery. Every syllable was a jagged shard telling her that I no longer harbored any love for her. Worse, there wasn't even a trace of hatred left in that speech. My flat, indifferent tone delivered the final blow to Misai. Give up. There is absolutely no us anymore. Smash! He violently hurled the voice recorder onto the floor. His eyes were wide with a haunted, frantic shock. Clutching his chest, he gasped for air through heavy sobs. The assistant, hearing the commotion, rushed in and was terrified by the sight. But before the assistant could utter a single word, Maikai suddenly bellowed from the hospital bed, "Get out!" The ward door slammed shut once again. Maikai collapsed onto the bed in total crushing despair, his gaze completely drowned in the shadows of the past. Upon learning that the recording had been delivered to Mikai, Lu Ruyan, lounging on the sofa, curled her lips into a smirk. It was a smile as radiant as a spring breeze, and as I descended from the corner of the staircase, I couldn't help but find myself smiling along with her. "What's got you in such high spirits?" Lu Ruyan rose instantly to greet me, stepping forward to take my hand as I cleared the final stair. "Just a trivial little matter." I didn't press for details, simply settling down beside her on the plush sofa. Liu Ruyan's slender arms wound tightly around me, her cheek pressing softly against mine. Her warm breath fanned against my ear, sending an involuntary shiver straight through me. My subconscious reaction was to pull away, but Liu Ruyan suddenly became playful, teasingly chasing me and blowing softly into my ear. My mind went completely blank. I didn't want to think about anything else. I just instinctively wanted to pull Liu Ruyan closer, surrendering deeper and deeper. The kiss finally came to a lingering end. Step by step, we made our way toward the upper floor. Seeing the situation, the servants outside quickly bowed their heads and quietly retreated as the moon shrouded itself behind a thick veil of clouds. The next morning, as Liu Ruyan finished dressing and came downstairs, she immediately spotted a servant looking at her with an awkward expression. "Miss, a mountain of gifts has suddenly appeared at the front gate. They say they are intended for the gentleman." Though Liu Ruyan and I were only officially engaged, from the moment I moved into the Liu estate, she had commanded everyone to address me as gentleman. Hearing this, Liu Ruyan instantly deduced exactly who had sent these offerings. Her composed expression didn't flicker. She simply replied with a chillingly calm tone, "Send them all back. And make sure the gentleman doesn't hear a word of this." The servant hurriedly acknowledged the command, turning away to immediately deal with the pile of unwanted gifts. When Mitai heard that all her gifts had been rejected, she didn't show the slightest hint of a reaction. She simply ordered her staff to keep sending them. Just when Liu Ruyan assumed these offerings would only be delivered to the Liu residents, Maikai personally appeared at the gala, gifts in hand. This was a high-profile banquet hosted by the Liu family's associates, marking my debut as Liu Ruyan's official fiancé. On the social scene, clad in a sharp black and gold suit that perfectly complemented the golden pocket square tucked into Liu Ruyan's chest pocket, we were a power couple. The massive 25-carat ruby glistening on my middle finger was a 25th birthday present from Liu Ruyan, sparking waves of envy throughout the entire ballroom. From the moment I emerged with my arm around Liu Ruyan's shoulder, I became the absolute focal point of every guest's attention, including Mitai, who was watching from a dark corner. Gazing at the boy in the center of the crowd with that radiant smile, a wave of bitter regret washed over her features. She had almost completely forgotten just how long it had been since she'd seen me truly happy. A long time ago, I was always laughing. My smile possessed a powerful, infectious energy. No matter how foul Mikai's mood had been, the mere sight of my cheerful face could instantly brighten her world. But ever since she ruthlessly rejected my feelings to be with Fang Yuan, I had become nothing but a shell of caution in her presence. Her grip on the gift box suddenly tightened, nearly crushing the fragile contents within. As the guests of honor for this evening's festivities, everyone flocked to present the new Mr. Liu with their various welcome tokens. Finally, Mitai mustered the courage to walk toward us. But before she could even utter a syllable, Liu Ruyan beat her to the punch, leading me away toward the private VIP box on the second floor. Yumo Mitai's expression shifted to one of panic, as she desperately tried to chase after us. Instantly, two hulking bodyguards intercepted her path, while the Liu family butler stepped forward to block her way. "Ms. Me, a person's value lies in their self-awareness. You know exactly what horrors you put our gentleman through. The fact that our miss hasn't retaliated further is already a massive favor to your reputation." The butler's words felt like a series of invisible, stinging slaps across Mikai's face. This humiliating scene instantly sparked the curiosity of the surrounding guests. A few insiders who knew the history between Mikai and me began whispering scandalous details to the others. Every word was a jagged insult mocking Mitai's blindness. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, the host of the banquet finally intervened, politely but firmly asking Mikai to leave the premises. Mikai's complexion turned deathly pale. Knowing she was in the wrong, she had no choice but to retreat. The cheers and rhythmic clapping echoing behind her only served to highlight her pathetic, wretched state. Inside the second-floor VIP suite, Liu Ruyan leaned into my arms, desperate to cheer me up. She was secretly fuming. Had she known Mikai would show up, she never would have brought me to this gala in the first place. Even if our attendance was mandatory, she would have had Mitai forcibly removed beforehand. Unfortunately, Mikai seemed hell-bent on winning me back. She didn't just outsource her domestic business to professional managers to free up her schedule. She even purchased a permanent residence here in England. It wasn't that Liu Ruyan lacked the means to crush her, but Mitai was technically my elder, who had raised and looked after me for years. Because of that debt, Liu Ruyan couldn't easily strike. This was the same reason my mother, upon Michai's arrival, warned Liu Ruyan to simply ignore her presence. The past should stay buried where it belongs. The best future is one where no one owes anyone anything. I could sense the underlying tension in Liu Ruyan, but I wasn't in the mood for words. I simply squeezed her hand back in a silent gesture. We sat there in the heavy silence of the private box until the first fireworks began to illuminate the sky. Taking a lesson from the previous fiasco, When Liu Ruyan organized my grand birthday bash, she stationed dozens of guards at every single intersection, terrified that Mikai might crash the party again. Surprisingly, Mikai was nowhere to be seen this time. When Liu Ruyan received the butler's report, a flicker of confusion crossed her eyes, yet an inexplicable sense of dread remained in her heart. She ordered the butler to maintain the strict perimeter. This birthday celebration was beyond extravagant. Liu Ruyan had rented every digital billboard across the UK to broadcast a continuous birthday tribute and surrounded the castle with a massive pyrotechnic display, ready to ignite the moment I blew out the candles, to set the night sky ablaze. Furthermore, the entire castle was draped in my favorite fresh blooms and glistening diamonds. The tribute gifts from the guests piled up like a mountain, nearly reaching the height of the custom-made castle cake. The climax of the birthday gala arrived, as Liu Ruyan presented me with the Heart of True Love watch she won at auction, a legendary timepiece. Together we blew out the flickering candles on the birthday cake. The very second the flames vanished, a barrage of fireworks outside the castle erupted into the night. This pyrotechnic spectacle illuminated the sky for an eternity. As the grand celebration finally wound down, guests began to depart in small lingering groups. Liu Ruyan and I, acting as the perfect hosts, stood before the castle gates to see them off. Just as I was about to speak, a swarm of countless drones suddenly ascended into the air, beginning to glow with a blinding light. As they formed a series of intricate patterns, I instinctively glanced over at Liu Ruyan, silently asking if this was another one of her surprises. However, Liu Ruyan simply shook her head in confusion. At that exact moment, the guests who hadn't yet left began to cry out in shock. Oh my god, it's breathtaking. The drone formations, they look like a grand confession. How incredibly romantic. As those words hit the air, both Liu Ruyan and I underwent a radical change in expression. We instinctively tracked the movement of the drones above. The more I looked, the more familiar those patterns became, and my face grew increasingly pale with dread. The initial sequence displayed my individual silhouette, but halfway through it shifted to me and another woman. While the other guests couldn't identify the female figure, I recognized her instantly. It was Mikai. My mind went completely terrifyingly blank. Was she truly determined to destroy my life? Even though the national live-streamed birthday ads on the billboards had already been switched off, there were still crowds on balconies refusing to head inside. And now Mikai was launching this romantic drone confession. I could already envision the headlines. Tomorrow's trending topics would be pure insanity. Beside me, Liu Ruyan had clearly reached the same conclusion. I was her officially recognized gentleman. Now, with another woman confessing her love at my birthday bash, the fallout would be catastrophic. Her face darkened into a murderous mask, instantly ordering the butler to shoot those drones down. Simultaneously, she reassured me that it would be okay. Yunmo, leave everything to me. I won't let this scandal touch you. Having said that, she had her staff escort me back, while she climbed into a high-performance supercar. The black machine roared as it tore through the night, vanishing into the horizon in a heartbeat. Meanwhile, on the other side of London, Mikai stood atop a skyscraper's rooftop, watching the faint shimmering glow of the drone show. A trace of profound loneliness flickered in her eyes. A lifetime ago, the very first wish I made after joining the Mi family was to have a drone light show for my birthday. Such a modest request was something Mikai naturally granted without hesitation. From that point forward, on every single one of my birthdays, she ensured that my wish never went unfulfilled. Until later, when my feelings for her turned into a frantic, obsessive love. That was the first time she skipped the tradition. There were no drones in the sky, and she didn't even acknowledge my birthday at all.